let's start with the Bucks because Sham said earlier if we got to the Bucks, so it seemed like you had some things to talk about or discuss with the Bucks. What's going on when you look at the landscape of the Bucks and how their season ended?
Yeah, I mean, 5-game loss. I mean, you lose 1-8 matchup. I mean, that's not. You go into a very difficult summer right there, and I think even now there's two words that stand out in my mind from what I heard. What's going on in Milwaukee right now? It's a state of shock and it's a state of embarrassment. I don't think any of them. Players, coaches, front office. No one saw this season ending this way because they went into these playoffs as the prohibitive favorite.
Mm-hmm. They were my favorite.
Look at this team.
Yeah. Yep.
2021, they won the chip. Last year, Chris Middleton gets hurt. So if he hadn't have gotten hurt, everyone there believes we would have won. We would have beat Boston.
For sure.
We'd have went to the finals. And so now you lose, and now not only you have the free agencies of Chris Middleton's gonna, he has a player option. I assume he's gonna enter free agency. Brook Lopez, free agent. There's not really ways for this team to get better. There's no cap space available. They're already in the tax. And then Mike Budenholzer, he's got 2 years, $16 million left on his deal. And I think there is a sense of frustration within that organization, within the locker room, with the coaching. And a lot of that has to do with the lack of adjustments.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler going off the way he did, like that, and not being able to find a defensive answer for him. And Giannis, it's very damning when your star player, franchise player, after the game says, we didn't make adjustments. We did not adjust at all. I wanted to guard Jimmy. In 2020, they said kind of the same stuff. I saw Milwaukee and Miami in the bubble. Miami beat Milwaukee very easily in the bubble, too. This year really reminded me of that. This whole series, Milwaukee looked tight late in the game. Coaching, there was a lot of pressure on the coaching, and Mike Budenholzer's future was in question after 2020 as well. And then even into the 2021 series, there was a lot of thought that if they had lost against the Nets in 2021, Mike Budenholzer would have been fired.
For sure. That's what it felt like.
Then they win, and then we know the history.
It's like that extension, because you won a championship. Here you go. You got it.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. He won a chip. First in 50 years.
Yeah.
So I think now you look at it. There were a lot of expectations on this team. The lack of adjustments, the timeout situation that we know about, not getting a shot off in regulation when you had in overtime when you had 2 timeouts left.
Pulling Brook Lopez
away from the basket on that dump in play by Jimmy. There's Jay Crowder. You trade 5 second-round picks to go get Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder played 10 minutes a game.
10 minutes.
DNP in one of the games.
Yeah.
He just came out with comments saying that he didn't know his role. So there's a lot in Milwaukee right now, and really like bigger picture than all that is Giannis, who's got I think 2 years left on his deal.
I think one thing is that they're old. Brook Lopez is a free agent. He's 35 years old. Chris Middleton's in his 30s as well. Drew Holiday's in his 30s as well. This core has been together for a few seasons, and it feels like they're just a bit too old to keep bringing it back. Let's bring it back. So I don't really know where they go, and I think that's the most interesting part. I've already seen stuff on Twitter about Giannis, especially when he talks about his frustration or about the lack of adjustments. Like, what can they do? Because last year, again, you got the excuse, Chris Middleton is out. This year, there is no excuse other than Giannis and play 2 games, but they lost the 2 games that Giannis did play. So it's like, that's not even that big of an excuse. So they have to figure out, what do we do in free agency? Because Brook Lopez feels irreplaceable.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I feel like and he's like the perfect center for Giannis. Like,
there's
no way.
Again, he's a 35-year-old 7-footer who had back surgery a year ago. So, like, how would that age? And then Chris Middleton had a few peaks of the season, but a lot of lows coming off his injury.
He was banged up.
He's banged up,
too.
man.
He's on the other side of 30, and that's the tough part about this team. As far as like the cap structure, you can't get better. Like, let's say Chris Middleton walks to another team. Teams with cap space can sign him outright to a max contract potentially. Where do you go if you're the Bucks? You really don't have a choice but to bring back Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez, even if it's for the sake of we can keep you and then we'll trade you next
later.
season, or maybe you sign and trade a guy like that. But then who do you sign and trade him for? Who can you realistically go get for a Chris Middleton right now? So this team is really they're at a crossroads right now, and I think the coaching staff is always the first people you can look at. And
sure.
I don't think they're going to make a quick decision, but there's going to be a decision that's going to be made in the coming weeks on Mike Budenholzer's future, no question.
The other half to what you were talking about as far as bringing them back is what Kenny was alluding to, is the age part. So you may have to overpay and go deeper into the luxury to bring back a guy like Brook Lopez. And then the aging of that contract may not be good for, you know, a Giannis who you said only has a couple more years on that contract. Same thing with Chris Middleton. You may have to overpay to bring these guys back, and the value may be that first year and a half to 2 years of those long-term contracts. And then once you're in year 3 or year 4 of it, where you're trying to convince Giannis to stay, those contracts may look unmovable. It may not match in production, and you may be in a position where Giannis has to leave because there's no room to grow and get better for this roster. I really feel like they didn't take the Miami Heat serious. I think that they felt that they were already etched into the conference finals, and I think based off what I've seen from Giannis throughout his career, specifically in that finals against the Suns, where it looked like his knee went out of place and he still came back and played, I think they were a little too precautious with his injury because they were thinking long term. We need Giannis to be 100% for when we play the finals.
And Giannis actually said, I don't know if he was talking specifically about the injury, but he said, you know, they were playing to beat us, we were playing to win a championship.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And I think that confirmed my feelings.
It could be like that too, because I swear they had like at least 2-3 games, and especially game 5 is just like you have a lead, 8-point lead with like 3.5 minutes left, and it's like you can't find anybody to get you a bucket. I think Giannis had like an M1 or something down the stretch, but it's just like they didn't really have nowhere to go to like offensively. It was just like I think I wish I would have seen more of just like a Giannis as a screen and roller instead of just like trying to attack Bam, because I felt like Bam was doing his thing on him defensively.
Yeah, for sure.
I would have tried to do at least different look offensively to try to get Giannis close to the rim. It looked like that's when he was at his best, when he didn't have to do too much on Bam, just like quick go up, quick buckets. But they just didn't look bad. Like I don't see how as a team that almost had 60 wins, you were the first seed. It's just like you have breakdowns at those times of the playoffs.
16-point lead,
They're
15-point lead.
Out-coach Budenholzer by
circles
a mile.
around him.
And, like, offensively, the way he used Jimmy in that last game 5 was phenomenal. He used him, like, as a screener, a pick and roller. He let Bam bring the ball up the court, so that way Jimmy could, like, set a screen, roll, a pop. Like, he could make reads off of that. And I thought that was beautiful because, like, now you don't just have Jimmy just trying to ISO. It's easier to guard a guy when he's ISO. And we see with Steph Curry, when he's off the ball, he's damn near unguardable. So he used Jimmy as, like, a decoy, and I loved it.
We seen Bam run a pick and roll with Jimmy Butler.
Setting the screen, yeah. That,
and Jimmy Butler scored on Brook Lopez in the paint and won. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
They had so many players on that roster that we thought were done. Kyle Lowry, done.
Gabe Vincent.
Gabe Vincent saved the day.
Duncan Robinson, done. Kevin Love, done. And they all did a little, just enough.
15 and 7.
Enough, right? He did enough for
Game
it.
6 clincher. The Cavs could have used him.
Yeah,
Cavs
that's
definitely could have used him, but they let him go. But shout out Jimmy Butler.
Shout out Jimmy Butler.
man.
He was saying to Drew Holiday, I had 40 on your head.
And it's crazy about that is that Drew Holiday's not a talker. Like you never see Drew Holiday like yapping and nothing. Jimmy Butler got into that man here so
I
much.
think he got into all, like the
Everybody's-
entire organization.
yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
whole organization is still
And
terrified.
I think that's the way you do it. You go after the guy who doesn't say shit. I'm coming at y'all guy, so now you have to stick up for him. You have to be a fan. I'm coming at the nice guy. It's easy to go back and forth with it. What are you gonna do? Get into it with Jay Crowder? That's predictable. I'm going at that guy right there, who's the quiet, nice guy.
It wasn't as chippy as I thought it could have been with it being a closer series. Wasn't a lot of scuffling.
You got to make it chippy if
You
you're the
have to.
Bucks.
You have
Like,
to.
especially when
Yeah.
the guy has 56 on you.
I
Gotta
thought
do
that's
something.
where a guy like Bobby Portis
Bobby
comes in
Portis
and
and
makes
Hugh
it
Donis
chip.
has
and
him,
he
got
played
into it.
10 minutes
Yeah.
in the last
and
game.
Score a bucket. And
And-
speaking of betting, I had a little parlay. Second half points for Bobby Portis because he played so bad.